didn't suck.
Hello and welcome to The Last of Us Spoilercast, where we're going to be talking about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 6. And as usual, this conversation is going to be full of spoilers. We will put a separate spoiler warning when we get to spoilers for things that have not yet happened in the TV show as things stand. So if you've only watched the TV show and you've not played the games, it's currently safe to stay in. But if you haven't seen Episode 6 yet, strongly advise you to go and watch that before coming into this conversation. This week, it's looks like it's just going to be me and Brooke, but potentially some other people might join later, but I don't know yet. But either way, we're going to have a lot to talk about, I think. Latest episode, obviously episode 6, we saw a lot of flashbacks in Joel's life. So should we start off with kind of, before we dive into any specifics, just kind of general take on the episode?
Yeah, sure. We were talking a little before we started, but there's like, I think if I had to quantify it, there are like, it's 75% of the episode I really, really, really liked and I really enjoyed, and then there's 25% that I'm still grappling with. Is it that I don't like it because it's different from the game, or do I not like it because I don't think it's like effective in the way that they want, like, think that it is? Um, so maybe we'll talk through that and I'll figure out, because it is like, I've been thinking about it all day and I'm like, it is something that is very important to me. Like, this is my special thing. Like, clearly I'm going to like be hypercritical of it. I don't want to be, but like, it is what it is. So, but overall, I thought that this was probably the best episode of the season so far.
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously we haven't kind of talked about what parts you were like critical of, what that 25% entails, but I think if we're on a similar wavelength, I can probably guess. For me, it wasn't so much that things didn't land in episode. I thought like the episode itself as a whole and the sort of through line from beginning to end all worked really well and like was
Mm-hmm.
performed really well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, I think as well, you could tell that it wasn't just Craig writing this episode, it was Neil and Hallie as well. And I think in a really positive way for this episode, but I think that kind of probably says what, like, when there's criticisms of things, that's probably like a
Yeah.
lot of where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think this episode kind of on its own as they worked really well, but and even like some of the stuff that was changes, but the more I kind of thought through it, and this happens a lot where I'll like watch the episode and generally kind of enjoy it as it's happening, and then I'll think about it and I'll
Mm-hmm.
think kind of, some people might say too deep because, obsessive fan of the games and whatever else,
Uh-huh.
but you think about it and kind of like pick at things. And I think the changes, it's not even necessarily the changes themselves, it's the snowball effect of the changes and like
Yes.
what changes will impact on other changes and kind of necessitate different things. So,
100%. Yeah.
um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking at. All right. But I mean, if we kind of start from the beginning, like
Mm-hmm.
I liked the addition of Joel and Tommy's childhood in that one brief moment because it was a really good performance in general, but also like a really good connection to the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really confused at first. I was like, not confused that we were about the scene, but I was like, do we need this? Like, do I need to see Joel and Tommy's childhood to understand the character better? But I recognize that it's also kind of like a Neil Druckmann staple to include like a father-child relationship. Like, if you've played the Uncharted games, that's all through especially Uncharted 4, which he directed, are like flashback scenes from to like their childhood, the characters. So I liked the addition. I thought it was cool. The only thing I wouldn't like about it is if it was the reason that other things that I wanted to be in the episode were cut out, but we'll never know that. So overall, I thought it was cool.
Yeah. I was very confused when we got the birthday gift flashback, and it kind of went straight from outside on the dinosaur to
Oh
in
my
the
god,
space museum, and like,
R.I.P. Hadasaur. I'm so upset. I'm so and they had and if you I don't know if you watched like to the end of the episode, they always do like the behind the scenes stuff. Like they built the whole set. Like there was the whole dinosaur atrium that they had built that we just didn't get to see, and I'm so mad about it.
yeah, I haven't seen the behind the scenes stuff yet. I'll have to watch it on YouTube because we don't get it as part
Mm,
of like Now TV, which is
yeah,
where we
yeah, yeah.
watch Last of Us here. But yeah, I saw enough of the stills and kind of like the photos of like Neil on set with Bella and with Pedro, and like it's all among the dinosaur bones, and it's just like, oh, what could have been.
Yeah, I'm torn because I have no notes about the actual like space section scene. Like that was just perfect to me, I think. And they even acknowledged it on the podcast. They were like, if it's perfect, don't change it. So we're gonna do it like one to one. Um there's like part of me that's like I'm okay with not getting some of the things because some of it is so like Ashley Johnson isms of like it just feels like her coming through Ellie in that section, like saying like that's a big boy and like all of those things. Like I didn't need to see all of that, but then I also think that there was some other dialogue that I was disappointed that we didn't get, like connecting it back to Sarah. That Ellie asks like, did Sarah like museums? And Joel is like, yeah, she dragged me to like every museum in Texas if she could. So I thought that that would have been, I don't know why that wasn't included because it feels important, but
Yeah, and the that kind of, if my memory serves, and it's in this order and not just this order because I speedrun it, but that pretty much leads straight onto the brachiosaur. They kind of look like giraffes
hmm
moments as well.
yeah, they're going up the stairs. Yeah. Yep. Yep. So that was a little sad. And I get that they could probably cut it out for time, but I think that at least some of the dialogue could have happened in other areas. I also think when they first get into the museum, you can go sit in an office chair and Ellie answers a phone, like just pretends to answer a phone, and she's talking about like, "Oh, sorry, like none of the dinosaurs are here right now." And then Joel walks in and she's like, "Oh, just kidding. One of the dinosaurs is here. Like, here's the phone." And I love that joke, and it feels like it would have been such a great Pedro Bella Ramsey interaction that I'm like bummed that we didn't get it. But that's like just me being not nitpicky, but
Yeah. See, probably the biggest change, like in this episode, was that every single one of the flashbacks we got, and that includes like the not really a flashback at the start,
mhm,
um, which at the start of the game where we see Joel sing to Ellie. That's kind of like how the game opens.
mhm,
Which, yeah, it's weird to think of it as a flashback because it's more like the start and then everything's flash forward. But
right,
yeah,
right.
but I digress. Like that part and the birthday gift and what we essentially got instead of finding strings, which is the Eugene story,
Mhm.
all take place on a birthday. That's kind
Yes.
of the biggest change
Mhm.
in there. Like, I think I can see why it was done for that episode. Um, we'll probably talk a bit more later about how that affects the timeline of things because there's a couple of things I've thought about both in terms of
Mhm.
what's already happened and then also what might happen in the future as well. But
Mhm. Mhm.
that's kind of the biggest thing that like and that kind of theme. So um Dee has just joined us as well. So before we kind of pick on that thread, do you want to kind of give your overall general view of the episode before we go into more specifics?
Yeah. I I'm an emotional dish rag. I'm so bad. I'm wearing a moth blanket just to feel close to them. And and I had my tattoo done
Love.
as well. So
Oh.
yeah, I have my fireflies when you're lost in the darkness. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought the way they did the reveal of of Ellie realizing actually Joel had been lying because she saw him lie again. I thought that was really, really clever. Overall, I loved it. There were changes from the game, but I
Mhm,
really enjoyed the changes. I really did.
mhm.
And I always love an appearance of Gale. Like Gale's the best.
Um, yeah, actually, on that point, about the fireflies as well, because I said earlier, like you can tell in a way that's really complementary to this episode, maybe less so to earlier episodes, but you can tell that this is the first episode where Craig Mazin is not the sole writing credit,
Yeah.
and Neil Druckmann and
Mhm,
Haley Gross are involved. And I think this is one of the things I've gone on about, like show don't tell in this
mhm.
show, like quite a few times. And at the end of the birthday gift, obviously we don't get the scene where she goes into a new part of the museum and she finds the
Mm,
graffiti and says liar underneath the firefly
yeah.
symbol, but she sees fireflies
Mhm.
and her face changes, and there's no word spoken, there's no little monologue about it, but that is like just such kind of, again, that's such like their writing. You could that feels like Last of Us writing. It's like that's
Yes.
so subtle, so like, but immediately kind of, oh, that's
Mhm.
still on her mind. That's still what's
Had
processing going through.
the same sort of effect as in the game where Abby hears, "Oh, hi, I'm Joel and this is Tommy." And that moment of Abby, in-game Abby, where she's like, "Oh, okay." And everything just falls into place for it. It was similar to that. So again, there was a bit of a, even though they
Yeah,
did it differently, there was another mirroring, another parallel. And I really enjoyed the way they did it because
Mhm.
I will be honest, I thought the way they did it in game was a little bit lazy. I preferred this.
That's fair.
Yeah.
yeah,
I did like the firefly thing. I didn't like pick up on it for at first, and then watching they did the little behind the scenes, they showed it again, and I was like, "Oh, they're looking at fireflies." Like, duh, that's so clever. Because
Yeah.
I guess I just was like, I think my brain was expecting her to find like like a firefly symbol or something. So I wasn't
Mhm.
looking for the actual fireflies like flying around. But once I did, I was like, oh duh, like that's so smart. But
yeah.
yeah.
And that, like say that the fact that it kind of a lot of it's told through looks, again, speaks to the strength of the writing in this. Like
Yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned looks, like Ellie being able to see from Joel the look on Joel's face when he's telling a lie and like
Mm-hmm.
connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and that's I like I say, that was really impactful. I think probably as much as it was good to see the birthday gift flashback, like done beat for beat and all that there, I think probably the most emotionally impactful scene of the episode, barring the porch scene, which still hits like even that version. But the stuff with Eugene and kind of his final moments, and then like um Ellie's like deciding to like blurt out that he's lying and all this sort of stuff, like all of that, like I think was kind of the linchpin of the episode, if you like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even though I was fighting to stay awake for some of it because it was very early this morning. I had a very big day yesterday. I had my ginormous back tattoo finished, so I was exhausted. But I was still like, I am staying awake. I am staying awake. But yeah, it kind of makes you marvel at how because Gail knows this, and she knows that he lied about it. So it
Mm-hmm.
kind of makes retrospectively makes the Joel and Gail scenes of the therapy a lot more heightened, I think. Knowing that this has happened now, when I go back to watch it, I'll be like watching their faces for clues
Mm.
because, like, oh, she knew he was a liar, and he wasn't telling her everything.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's made it all everything seems to be interlocking now. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this I feel like all of the things that they showed us and didn't tell us, like I don't we'll never know for sure because it's not like I'm gonna get a script and it'll say like who wrote what line, but I just feel
Mm.
like this episode it was so clear the things that Craig Mazin put in there, and then the things that Neil and Hallie chose. I don't know. It just feels like such a, especially after watching the rest of the season, it feels very clear who was a part of what, I guess. And not I don't want to give like I don't want to shit on Craig Mazin that bad
No,
because like season 1 I really have no notes for on
no.
all of the different things and changes. So I want to understand some of the choices that they made for how they present part 2 as a story to the audience.
Yeah.
And like I've listened to the podcast that they have the Craig and Neil are on every week and they talk about like their process and how they decide on what to change and what to add and like why things are a certain way, but I'm still just like that's fine, but why did you decide to write it where the character is just going to like look into the camera and tell you exactly how they're feeling and what the theme of the thing is?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that some of that is kind of like, is that what television is nowadays? Like, kind of.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of, it shouldn't be from HBO. Like maybe from, I don't know, something from the 90s where they like kind of have to look and wink.
Yeah.
But yeah, they one of the things that was quite interesting, and because this kind of reflects on this episode, but it's like some of the stuff I've been thinking of, I've been thinking of like the season as a whole and like how the changes have impacted on each other and kind of all the different stuff. And we talked about how, like for example, Battle of Jackson and having that there necessitated the 3 month gap, which in turn necessitated Dina having to go back to Jesse so that she'd be pregnant when they leave, and the relationship being later, which in turn necessitated Ellie having a different reaction to the pregnancy than she does in the game. So it's not immediately apparent, like kind of her descent and that sort of stuff. But the other thing, like, is in this episode, the timeline change, the fact that it's her 15th, 16th, 17th, and 19th birthdays.
Yeah.
And the 19th birthday is when she goes on her very first patrol outside the walls of Jackson. First time she gets like have a gun and go and do that. And that's just like what, 9 months before they're like the events of episode 1, which is much later than Ellie in the game kind of goes out and does that. And the Joel in the TV show is like, one of the consequences of this is that like Joel in the game is still, he's like asking Jesse.
Jelly? Is
Mm-hmm.
that their shipping name?
Yeah, he's asking Jesse about the patrol routes. I almost said it again then. About the patrol routes, and he's kind of doing this, but he's still trusting it, even though he's like kind of, because he knows there's a distance and he's trying to like still be involved, but he also still trusts her, which goes back to part 1. And like effectively in part 1, Henry was that lesson for Joel, because how overprotective he was of Sam, leading to Sam dying, was kind of like, the counterpoint to Joel finally relenting and giving her a gun and letting her look after herself. And yeah, if you like, it doesn't necessarily take away from that, because I don't think Henry worked the same way in the show as the game. Now that I think about it, I don't think the lesson was exactly the same, but it just puts it in a different context. And I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing or a good thing, because I think this Joel is different, like the porch conversation, we see that, but it's just one of those kind of things that, like, the more you think about kind of not only the changes themselves, which, like I say, works in this episode as like as a whole thing, it just recontextualizes everything in a different way. Like, I think sometimes that's, I can be critical of that. Other times I'm kind of like, okay, it's just different. I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's just there. But that was kind of one of the things that I was thinking about probably too much again today.
I think we definitely kind of learned a bit about who Joel is and how Joel is from the stuff with his dad.
Mhm.
That was, like, incredibly written
That
and
yeah.
incredibly acted. The actor who was playing young Joel, when his dad came back with the beers and there
Mhm.
was the slight move, just the very slight move, and it was like, whew. Oh, yeah, that was gave me goosebumps. And, like, I trying to be a bit better, and then when you can try and be a bit better, it's like, "No, it's not how we break generational curses, we just stop." But yeah, got
Yeah,
goosebumps thinking
it
about it
felt
now.
it felt realistic, and listening to the podcast afterwards, like, Craig and Neil were both like, this was written coming from, like, a personal experience where it's like, their parents grew up getting hit, and so that they do the same thing to their
Mhm.
kids, and then they were both like, "We're gonna stop that." But it is kind of like a realistic, I guess, portrayal of that kind of family relationship and how those things are passed down. So yeah, I really loved that edition.
Yeah, I think you could see it not just in kind of like the beginning and end. You could see it in the other parts as well. Like you'd see kind of Joel's almost instinctive reaction when he finds Ellie and Kat together, and is like, what's all this?
Yeah.
And then,
Not under my roof.
and then
Mhm.
Ellie basically checks him, so you don't own anything, effectively saying you don't own me.
Mhm.
And then he kind of goes, "Oh no, let's rethink this. Let's be better."
Mhm. Mhm.
And he's actively learning within it. So I thought that was really good the way that was
Yeah,
delivered.
me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Those I love how those things were written because you can like there was like dialogue, but you can read in between the lines of what they're saying because Ellie didn't say, "I'm not your daughter" or "I you don't own me,"
Mm.
but that's exactly what she was getting to when she was yelling at that. I don't know.
"You're not my real dad." Literally, it made me sort of like I've been sort of working out how I feel about it because, like, oversharing time, it really did mirror my own experience as a kid, even to the point where I moved into the garage when I was 15.
Mhm.
I moved into the family garage, and then my mother decided I wasn't close enough to berate, so moved me back in the house. Um, but yeah, it was so well done, and you could tell that it hadn't been written by somebody who'd gone and researched this stuff. It was written by
Mhm.
somebody who'd gone through this stuff.
For sure.
It was so
Yeah.
authentic.
I do like the change that Ellie like lived in the same house with Joel because
Mm.
in the game she always lived in the garage and I think that like highlights more of that familial like father-daughter relationship. I think they feel the way that both actors have portrayed the characters and kind of how the characters are written. They they are their relationship is more more open and more affectionate than it was in the game, which that's something that I'm trying to grapple if I like or not
Yeah,
because
yeah,
like Joel and Ellie's relationship in game is like so special to me as like a daughter. Like not everyone has like I have a good relationship with my dad, but we're not like super lovey all the time, and
yeah,
that's, like, very I think that's a very real experience, and that this is more like Joel and Ellie, this version of them, I guess, is a little more of an idealized version
yeah,
of that relationship, which I think is fine because both, like, actors obviously prove that they can, convince us that that's what it
absolutely.
is, so, but
Yeah, I mean, Pedro's version of Joel is kind of, I think, always has been to a degree, like softer than like Troy
yeah,
Baker's version of Joel.
uh-huh,
And I think that's kind of one of the things. Again, it's staying true to season one. It's like that's,
mhm,
Yeah,
even if it's not the way the game would do it, it's if they suddenly change that relationship, it wouldn't feel true to like season one of the show kind of thing.
yeah, yeah,
and by having Ellie living in the house with Joel first, you get to see her move away from him by increments
mhm,
and
yeah.
claim her own life.
Like,
Like,
literally moving away
yeah,
distance-wise
Yeah.
too, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I did
Yes.
like that we saw kind of like, even if it was like a little moment, again, even like Ellie hurting herself before she got the tattoo and then the tattoo, because you do see it kind of in the game, like when that guitar scene happens, Ellie does have the bandage on her, around her arm, and then later on you see like the tattoo, and then kind of it goes through different evolutions like in each
Mhm.
flashback. So it is kind of there, but there's more like I suppose not discussion of it, but there's like at least reaction to it, and the kind of thing like
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
acknowledged more. And I want to say I will defend Pedro Pascal's Joel a little bit here. I am seeing a lot of people just jumping to be like, "Oh my god, Joel is homophobic." And I'm just like, that's not
So
what was
that
happening in
what? So
that
they need
scene.
some balm for for that stretch. I mean, for
It's
goodness sake.
It's so I don't know. I just feel like a lot of the criticism that's like that is coming from people who have like never actually experienced what it's like to be in Ellie's shoes and have a parent that is like Joel. Like, and I also they changed the timeline. So in 2003 is way there between 2003 and 2013 from when the game outbreak happened. Like those 10 years, a lot happened socially and just like in the cultural climate that gay marriage wasn't legal until 2015. And then like marijuana wasn't even legalized recreationally until what 2012, I think.
Mm.
So like it's understandable for Joel to have the reaction that he did, but I would also argue that it is so reasonable for a parent of any kind to have that reaction to anyone, to their kid, like walking in their kid doing not
presented
one, not
with
two, but three crazy things
Mhm.
behind a closed door at the age of what, 17 or 16 or whatever it was.
yeah, there's kind of a sensory overload moment. It's like, oh, it's this and this and this and this. Like what was the line? All the teenage shit at once.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is he didn't get to experience that with Sarah because they didn't get to
No.
that point. So like I don't know, just people saying people just saying shit just to say shit. And I'm like, calm down a little.
Right? I mean, like, but but Joel and Sarah had that really quite she was quite grown up for her age. She was at home alone,
Hmm.
didn't need a sitter. She was up late waiting for him. She was and he it seemed like that they were used to that. That's how they lived their lives. And they had that easiness between them when he's like, "Well, where did you get the money?" She's like, "Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs now." Like, so she had that bit of sass. So he's used to
Hmm.
sassy younger women. So I liked that then he had this sassy teenager under his roof.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's not the fact that he's homophobic. It's like, oh, for goodness sake, it's like
See, I think
it's an
a lot of
adjustment. I have I have kids,
mm,
and two of them have come to me and said like, "Oh, mum, I think this or this about their sexuality," and I'm like, "Okay, it's an adjustment. Takes 2 seconds," and it
Hmm.
didn't take Joel that long to adjust either.
Mm-mm.
yeah,
So no,
but I think I mean this is kind of a tangent, but like a lot of like kind of the reactions that I've seen from people, um, and like there's plenty of stuff to discuss critically, which we've started to do, like, and we'll probably do a lot more of it in a minute as well. But I think there's also like this habit of people like kind of jumping on things, like even like kind of half-heard things. Like I remember when it was mentioned that like Seth would appear in
Mm.
like a flashback, and they were like, "Oh, why are we getting a whole episode about Seth?" And obviously we never did because that was
Yeah.
bullshit. Or like people like leap into all these like random conclusions about like any like random snippets of a sentence that someone said, which is kind of why if I was making anything Last of Us related, if I was Neil Druckmann, I would be so fucking terrified of saying anything in an interview ever because it's just left
Hmm.
on and picked at like in a way that is just insane, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because yeah,
yeah,
and like the amount of times like when people say, "Oh, we didn't get this in this episode," and then it happened in the next episode, and people were up in arms about it, and then it did.
Hmm.
Because again, there's stuff. to be critical about, but then there's also like people. I think people want to be mad at it. Like, and I kind of understand if you're attached to the games and you're seeing changes. I can kind of understand like to some degree, but I think there's a level of it. People are just like kind of actively searching and waiting to go, right, what can I be mad about and like prove that this is like not as good as the game now. And I'm saying that as someone who doesn't think it's as good as the game, by the way.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I think there's like that's why when I have like a visceral reaction to something, I'm like, okay, I have to let me sit with it and think about it before I just automatically go online and be like, this is trash because XYZ. Because maybe next week they'll answer the question that I had, or
Yeah.
they'll show the thing that I was hoping to see, or that they'll have a conversation about something that I wanted to see later. So, like, that's why whenever I'm like, I post on Twitter or threads or something, and I'm like trying to express my criticism of it, I get so upset when people like come into my comments and try to like mansplain or just explain away why my criticism is invalid because they did show that in blah blah blah. And it's like, I just wish people would just like take 5 seconds to like look at my profile and see this is clearly something that I care deeply about, and I'm not going to just like be like rash with my opinions. Like I really take the time to think about what I want to say before I say it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's like, I've tried to stay away from a lot of it, but I like flick through TikTok and like something pop up, and it's either someone being really mad that something didn't happen, or someone in the most condescending possible tone talking like oh, you thought this was bad in this episode because of this.
Mhm.
Well, actually, let me tell you why you're a dumb stupid head. And
Yeah.
like so
Yeah.
it's like it's
Yeah.
just like, oh my god, everyone just talk about this in a more level-headed, normal way instead of
Mhm.
like rushing in each other's throats. It's insane.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
big ask that I'll never actually get, but like I don't know. It's because well, this game is so polarizing to begin with. So I knew that there was going to be honestly a lot of the discussion, like discourse around the show surprises me because I thought we were going to get way more discourse about Abby, and I feel like I've seen almost none of that. I
We
see
haven't seen a
more
lot of Abby.
we
Yeah,
haven't
see
seen a lot of Abby. I think maybe that's
that's a
why.
joy we have to get in season 3.
Yeah.
The discourse.
That is true. But I don't know. And like every couple of it's like I don't even think it matters if the show is playing or not. Like every couple of months we get the like was Joel right or wrong conversation, and I'm just like it doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. Could they make a cure? I don't know. That's not the point.
Yeah,
I saw someone say that they're like, "Oh, the show is confirming that they could have made a cure without a doubt because Joel shook his head yes when Ellie asked him." And I'm like, "Please, that's not like they gave the first scene of the show of the entire show. They basically said, "Yeah, you can't create a vaccine or a cure for something fungal."
Ta-da!
yeah. But the thing is, as well, as like it doesn't even matter. Like again, I don't think this discourse stuff is ever going to go away. But
Mhm.
like the thing I like about the porch scene is, and this is true for the game version and for this version, is that kind of Joel doesn't like go out of his way to try and over explain things and like
Mhm.
actually X, Y, and Z. Because again, he says more in the show, and he says his entire reasoning in the show. He said, I loved you in a way that you can't understand, basically because you don't have a kid. This is what any parent would do for their child.
Mhm.
And that's the fundamentals of it. It's he didn't take time to weigh up whether they or not the cure was possible, whether or not the Fireflies had the like right logistics to distribute it to the entire
Mhm.
country. All that stuff, like there's an interesting discussion about whether that happened. None of that at all matters to Joel's decision. Joel's decision
Exactly.
was man with gun forced me outside, going to kill, my daughter again. Only way to stop them
Mhm.
is to murder them all. So that's basically
I mean, we can like condense that down to 3 words. Not my kid.
No,
No,
really.
wicked.
That's okay. Like, I- if we're talking about the porch scene, because that is kind of like what I was really enjoying the episode, and then I was like, oh my god, we're getting the porch scene. I don't really even care that we're getting it so early because I expected to get it by the end of this season, just the way that television logistics works.
Yeah.
If we waited 2 years to get that conclusion, like for next season, it wouldn't have the same impact, I think, as like bringing in introducing the concept that maybe they talked and then showing us. But like they were so on track. I was like, great, this is a great conversation. And then that's like where it fell apart for me. I'm and I've grappled with this like all day. I don't know why they chose to combine two of the most important conversations that Joel and Ellie have into one, where Ellie gets that final confirmation, the actual confirmation from Joel about what he did. And then we immediately go into like, but I'm willing to try to forgive you. I think it was a mistake.
Mm, I agree. I
I
agree.
think,
I think I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'd like to try is a conversation much further on. Because
Yeah,
she
yes.
because that
hasn't had time to deal with it, process it, anything.
again, she
Hmm.
has like the first time that she goes out on a patrol is at 19 years old.
Hmm.
Whereas again in the game, it's like she's what 17 when she goes back to St. Mary's Hospital
I
and
think
finds the
so.
recording,
Hmm.
and then like she's basically been completely estranged from Joel for 2 years when they have that conversation.
Hmm.
Um, and that like impact of that conversation the night before he dies obviously is like huge ramifications in terms of
Hmm.
how it impacts how she feels about where they left off and how she feels about the
Right.
fact that he's dead and the vengeance he's seeking and everything else.
Hmm.
But like, I can. So I'm guessing I haven't listened to the podcast, so I don't know whether they explain this or not. But
Hmm.
I'd guess that their thought process would be something along the lines of that in this version, she's willing to try to forgive him because he's finally been honest, or something along those lines. And she's like, the estrangement was like kind of knowing that he was lying and not knowing the full truth for that long, which
Mm,
I can kind of see, but I feel like the fact that because she moved out and like had the thing, and like it essentially was like Joel feels like he was lying. He was still lying to himself when he spoke to Gail, but he also
Hmm.
wasn't lying to himself as much as I thought when he said, "Oh, it's teenager shit," because it kind of was.
Hmm.
Like a lot of it was a reaction to the stuff like the blowout when he found her with
Yeah.
cat and all stuff like that, and it's like there wasn't that full blown. I'll go back, but we're done. I'm not speaking to you ever again. We're not
Hmm.
a thing at all. That like never happened.
And it's I was trying I've been like thinking about this all day, so I'm trying to articulate like because I keep getting people in I because I've said this on like Instagram threads. I was just like, I don't understand why, like I understand why, but I also don't understand why they chose to make these two conversations happen in the same scene. The people are like, oh well, he already knew and she already knew. But there's something to be said about, and I was trying to I compared this to like me having ADHD, but it being confirmed, like I've known this for years, but
mm,
actually having the confirmation from a doctor that like yes, what your suspicions are is all true. Like this and it contextualizes like how I am as a person and like that a lot of the things that I've done or qualities about me like there's an explanation for that and so I'm able to like process it better now
yeah.
that I think of sure Ellie might have known this whole time that Joel's story was a crock of shit, but having that confirmation then allows her to process it in a different way. And I think that it was I think it personally is a mistake to not have included that conversation separately. I don't even need, and I think on the podcast they said like, because the show is a little more grounded in reality. I don't know what they said, but like they were like, it would be it's more unrealistic for this version of Ellie to like go all the way to Salt Lake by herself and then have Joel follow her, which I totally get. I don't need them. I don't need Ellie to have to go back to the hospital to get the same information that she gets
Yeah.
from Joel in that conversation that they have. I just wish like and the way that the episode was structured, it was like a birthday every year, but then they skip a year. Like
Mm.
why couldn't that conversation have happened in that like 18th birthday time period?
I was genuinely
Absolutely.
surprised when she said you swore and kind of stormed off, and then we went straight to the winter dance, and it was like,
I was like, am I missing
should
something?
yeah,
I thought that it was gonna come back around and she was gonna confront him.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important that she has the courage to confront him and he has the courage to tell her the truth. And that they have to sit with that information and
Yeah.
that like process it longer than 5 seconds.
Right, because Brooke, you were saying about ADHD, I felt very much the same about my autism, but there is
Mm-hmm.
also a common denominator of emotion that happens when you get that sort of thing confirmed,
Mm-hmm.
and that is there is anger.
Mm-hmm.
There is grief, there is denial. You go through the 5 stages. Like, it's like, "What? I wasn't stupid all this time? I just wasn't being taught properly? What?" And there is an anger
Mm-hmm.
that comes with it. The grief that comes with the
Mm-hmm.
grieving what you thought was and having it confirmed, even if it was at the back of your head, having that confirmed that actually he lied to you about a very, very big thing.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't lie about like what was in a cake or how he got the coffee, and I still don't know what he traded for the coffee. He didn't lie about that. He lied about something enormous.
Yeah.
So to be grounded in reality, actually, and considering Ellie's going through all the rest of the teenage shit, that 5 minutes later was just not realistic.
Yeah. It to me it like lessened the impact
Yep.
of her like because she knew to me like Ellie knew whatever Joel did whatever he said was a lie and that he obviously did something that caused them to both leave the hospital.
Yeah.
But she didn't have the information until the porch scene that they were planning to kill her.
Yeah.
And so for her to like I feel like that's something that needs time to process because in the game when she comes back and has that conversation and she says like my life would have fucking mattered, like you can clearly tell that it's something that she has processed for
Yeah.
a long time and is stewing on, but like Ellie didn't have that information like in the same way,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like I think maybe that's part that bothers me the most is like sure she knew that Joel was lying. She knew that he did something obviously terrible.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was like about her autonomy and her choice to make, that was why like that is the like core of why she's mad at Joel.
Yeah.
Because she
there's
didn't
also
wasn't given the choice.
the other thing as well is like we it's never mentioned in the game, but in the show, it's explicitly mentioned that he killed Marlene, who obviously Ellie had an attachment to.
Uh-huh.
And that's something, again, like she might have kind of suspected or feared or whatever.
Yeah.
Not only is he having, the same conversation where she finds out for definite that he's lied is when she says she can forgive him. It's the same conversation where she finds out that he killed, like,
Mhm.
the one connection to her mother as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say the
Mhm.
closest, ineffectual, but closest thing she had to a mum.
Yeah, that's another point. Because I feel like I can imagine her their thought process in writing it this way is that because she like knew that he was lying, she had time to herself to process it, and then so when he does admit it, she's like, okay, I've thought about this moment, and now am willing to
Mm.
forgive you. But like, I don't know that addition to be like, and yes, I killed Marlene, and I'm not sorry about it. Like that's another thing that I feel like I would be like, oh, now I have to rethink if I want to forgive this guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't think it was as effective. I think it hurts both of the scenes. Like both conversations are now like less impactful.
Mm.
Agreed.
than if they had been separate.
Yeah, I also like in terms of how like the order of it happens as well. Like the thing that Joel says before she says again, and I know we've mentioned already that like this Pedro's Joel is a softer Joel, so that like
Mhm.
it makes sense that he'd say because I loved you and like thing that that Troy's Joel didn't. But at the same time, like it's always been one of my favorite things about that conversation is the fact that Joel doesn't kind of back down or try and say, "Oh well, you know, I'm sorry," but he says,
Uh-huh.
"I would do it all over again."
Mhm.
And
That that's another one of my like hot takes because I'm like scrolling through my feeds this morning and everyone is like, "Oh, because I love you." Like that hurt my heart. Like, "Oh, it's so devastating." And I'm like, "Actually, I hated it."
Yep.
Actually, I don't think he should have said that. And I think it wouldn't have bothered me so much if they hadn't been spending the rest of the season like spelling out everything for us. It just felt like another one of those moments because like duh, of course he loves her.
you
Like of
see,
course he loves her.
I didn't even like, I didn't even necessarily mind him saying they love it. Again, for Pedro's Joel, no Pedro. I can't speak today. Um, for Pedro's Joel, it kind of makes sense. I think the fact, but it was very clearly like they're saying that him basically standing there and say, "I'd do it again." Like, you know, no matter what's happened, I'd do it again.
Yeah.
Is
Mm,
what kind of made her stop and do that thing. You know,
yeah.
moments of okay, you know, I might not agree with this, but he's got this very like. Whereas I didn't like Ellie saying because you're selfish.
Oh, I hated that.
I think
Oh.
because that's one of the again we mentioned it before, one of the stupidest arguments about like the Joel's decision at the end of Last of Us Part One. Like I've always said, and I think Last of Us Part Two kind of vindicates this. The thing that Joel did wrong was never to save Ellie; it was to lie to her afterwards. That was
Mhm.
the thing that he did wrong.
Mhm.
Um, and anyone who kind of like it's like, oh no, he saved Ellie for selfish reasons. It's how the
Piss off.
how do you even begin to like I mean unless you know these people might be like Spock, the great the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, whatever cold Vulcan logic, but
Uh-huh.
I'm a human being and like especially given the situation he was in, like where he's being marched out at gunpoint anyway. But yeah,
Mhm.
I just always thought that was a and like as someone who understands why Abby did what she did and who loves Abby as a character, I always thought that was a stupid argument that Joel was saved her for selfish reasons. I always thought that was so dumb.
It was
Mhm.
the argument is dumb, but Ellie saying "'cause you're selfish" was pretty much teenage shit. They could have had her say it before, like when
Mhm.
she was acting out as a teenager. Like that
Mm,
would have
Yeah.
made sense. "You're selfish," and he'd be like, "You don't get it because you haven't had kids," type thing. But the
Mhm.
"because I love you," oh, for goodness sake. It was a little bit soap opera, and I
Yeah,
wasn't a fan. The
it's
whole
something.
"I would do it again" says and shows I love you more than those words.
Yeah, and I think that's why I love the porch scene so much. And obviously, like the Joel and Ellie from the game, their relationship is different than the show. Like
Yeah,
we said, Joel's a little softer in this version, which is not a problem. But like to me, the impact of like the finality of Joel saying, "I would do it over again," and then like at least just thinking about how it plays out in the game,
yeah,
the look on Ellie's face, it finally clicks for her that like this is unconditional love. This is why he did this. And now I can understand. And that is what is allowing me to be able to try to start to forgive him.
yeah,
Whereas Ellie in the show saying, "You're selfish," kind of totally like recontextualizes that moment. And then they add in like the "because I love you." I feel like it was good the way that it was. And I don't, it just feels like another one of those like, "I'm spelling it out for you."
yeah.
Despite the amazing performance, because the performance between Bella and Pedro were amazing, the way that it was
mm,
written,
Yeah,
but I didn't need him to say that. Like,
yeah,
there's something so, like, special about things that are unsaid that you can just and Bella and Pedro are so good at this, at just giving each other a look, and you know how they feel about each other. They did it in season 1 with the like time heals all wounds. It wasn't time that did it. Like that's all the confirmation I need that they loved each other.
Yeah.
I didn't need it to hear it. If
Yeah.
that and I don't know. I guess they're like trying to go through like the through line of breaking the like generational trauma, and so he's being more open with her, but
Yeah.
I think it would be fine on its own if it were not for all of the other decisions that they've made in the season.
Because it's in the context as well of at the end of the first season where he's going, oh, you'd have really liked Sarah, blah blah blah,
Mhm.
and that wasn't just a man who was happy and chatting. This was a man who was terrified that she would ask him the question,
Mm.
because he
Mhm.
didn't know until she did ask him what his answer would be.
Mhm.
Right? So
Mhm.
he's terrified of losing. So we already know that he loves her and doesn't want to lose her, and he's terrified of losing her. Then he
Yeah.
does the whole like, it wasn't time that did it. We know that he loves her. We've seen everything he does from the point where she says, I would only be more scared.
Mhm.
Right? From that point, everything he does shows his love for her.
Yeah.
We didn't need him to say, because I love you. It was, lazy writing. Best thing about the episode was Eugene. Oh man, loved Eugene.
Yeah. Just kind of like while we're still on the pod scene before we get and go to the other stuff. Yeah, I think again, I can't fault the performances in that because like it was kind of again after the fact and thinking about it, but like the delivery of it in that moment and the emotion, it was kind of like, whew, you know, right there,
Mhm.
hit you in the feels kind of thing. It is more kind of after, but again, it's specifically the fact that the fact that I would do it all over again didn't stop her in the tracks. I think
Mhm.
that's the thing that kind of undercut it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think talking it out, that is like that moment bothers me so much because I feel like like we see, and this is this for if anyone's listening and hasn't played the game, like this scene is at the very end of the game. It's like the second to last thing that we see. And so it contextualizes like all of the choices that Ellie made and why because of that moment. And then I just feel like it's different now. Like the impact of it on not where it's placed because I don't that like I just said, it doesn't bother me that it's we're seeing it earlier than we do in the game. That part doesn't bother me. It's the part that like, yeah, she doesn't like process what he's saying until he tells her that he loves her, and that just doesn't feel authentic
Genuine.
to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Agreed.
Hmm. A slight side note on that, it kind of came up when we were watching it early watch party, like pointed out we have the porch scene is, according to the timeline, is 9 months later after her birthday, 19th birthday, and then she wakes up screaming, seeing Joel's death 3 months after that conversation. They don't explicitly say it, but
Mm,
episode 3 may have at least partially crossed over Ellie's birthday.
mhm. Yeah, I was thinking back on it now because I didn't like do the math until I saw someone else say it that if they were going that route, I would have loved like one of the days in Seattle being Ellie's birthday and having them like highlight that
Yeah.
in this episode because it was like they were doing her birthday every single year and then, they flash forward to the present and some sort of nod to it being Ellie's birthday like would have been a great way to like bring it all full circle.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
either way, it kind of adds to the sads, the big sad.
But though I am angry and very upset that they didn't do the jump into the
Oh
river.
yeah.
Like, you are very angry and upset. I am very angry and upset. That oh,
Yeah,
you
I
go,
mean,
I go, and now this.
I will defend that though, and like the reason they didn't have the swimming, because this is something that's always bugged me in the game. Whenever you play as Ellie, you notice she leaves her bag slightly unzipped all the time.
Oh
And
yeah.
that bag is full of like artifacts that she's picked up and trading cards and all sorts of
Uh-huh.
things. And then she's swimming around. Those things would be absolutely soaked through and unusable.
That Walkman would be a
And
goner.
Joel's got that tape in his pockets and his
Uh-huh.
t-shirt.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I do get it, but it's like my favorite lines of dialogue. They've
Yeah.
skipped me out of both of them.
Yeah. No, I am sad about the no Hatasaur. Because that
Right.
Yeah, especially
is
because they filmed it all as well. Like they filmed the whole like
I
going around putting hats on
know.
the dinosaurs scene and then cut it.
Give it to us, please. Just release it. Yeah, and there is there's a couple things that I like. I understand they cut for time or they cut because it doesn't make sense for like Ellie to go back to Salt Lake by herself. But something from the game that I really enjoyed is the callbacks to the first game where like the dinosaur is clearly a representation of the giraffe. And I love that symbolism that we don't get to see in the show, which is kind of a shame. And then lesser so because I understand why they didn't send her to Salt Lake, but I feel like they're all of the press that I saw them do about this season, they were really trying to hone in on like the parallels between Abby and Ellie. So I would have loved to have seen Ellie walk down the hallway that is Abby's nightmare, like
Yeah.
reoccurring nightmare that she has, and I would have liked that to me as like a great visual parallel, but it's
Mm,
fine. That one is like lesser so because I understand why they didn't do that.
yeah, I feel like they again they did something really good with Eugene and that
Mm-hmm.
storyline, and I think the connection to Eugene and the connection of like and the performance that Joe Pantoliano gave as Eugene, like in that moment where he's like terrified because he's going to die and everything, and like that really hits home. And that's obviously a substitute for the people they find in Finding Strings, which I think I said a few episodes back, where they kind of do that, and it hits those same beats. They really did miss a trick though, not having that conversation after, like immediately afterwards, or if they weren't going to have a
Yeah,
Ellie go to Salt Lake City, they could have at least had the conversation and
yeah,
confrontation. Because
yeah.
everything from the previews and the trailers, I genuinely thought that moment where she says "you swore" was going to be that full conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was a little disappointing when we didn't get that. Plus, especially like the morning of Joel taking her out on patrol, she has this like little notebook that she's written all these questions down. So I don't like it. It would have given her the opportunity to actually bring that up because I feel like otherwise she might have been too scared. Because she
Hmm.
like when Joel knocks on the door, she's like, "Oh shit! Like I'm gonna hide this. Like he can't find this." But then I feel like that would have given her the courage to confront him.
Yeah.
So I just don't know why they didn't put that conversation there.
Yeah, that's very true. Um,
I know, right? Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? I love this show. I love the game, and I absolutely love this show. I every Sunday night, I'm like, "Oh, Last was tomorrow," and then I sit here for a couple of hours and just pick it apart. I feel mad,
Yeah,
but it's like, but like,
it's hard because I do, but I think I'm picking it apart because I love it so much,
yeah, right,
and I just want to understand the choices that they
yeah,
make because like yes, of course something is not going to be one to one
yeah,
with a game with the game. That's It's totally a given. I totally
I
understand
don't
that.
think anybody who argues it should be didn't watch season 1, episode 3.
Right. And the things that they changed or added in season 3, I feel like just enhanced the overall story.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I'm grappling with, because I feel like I'm always so negative talking about this season, but I'm just grappling with how they think these decisions are like enhancing
Yeah.
the source material.
Right.
And I know some of it is logistical, because I'm not stupid, and I can think, like, I can
Yeah.
understand why they choose to do things a certain way, just because of like logistics or location, or filming in live action is way different than filming a video game.
Yeah.
But just some of the character choices and the way that like information is given, and when
Mhm.
it's all very carefully selected and organized in the game, like in a certain way.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
guess that's what I'm grappling with the most, and that's like why I pick it apart, because I just want to know why.
Just tell us why. I think
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna listen to all the podcasts one after the other when we finish the entire show.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
I can like, okay, so what were you thinking?
Mhm.
Try and watch just the show as a standalone. Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky because even though I've watched Phil play the game lots and lots and lots, um, then I still can do the whole, oh, I'm really looking forward to the show a lot more
Yeah.
than I look forward to the game. Because when Phil's playing, I don't often see the cutscenes
Mhm.
because he's doing speed runs or he's doing challenge runs. So like I've only seen the cutscenes a handful of times, so it doesn't really bother me as
Mhm.
much. I understand that had they had the porch conversation, had it been two different conversations,
Mhm.
they would have had to have shown time elapsing. They would have had to bring it. There probably would have been another whole episode just to get to that point. So I understand it. It's
Yeah.
just I don't have to like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thing that, like, because I've been trying to like start putting all my thoughts in order about like the season as a whole. Obviously, for once we got episode 7 as well, and kind of like what do I think about it as a whole
Yeah.
kind of finished product. And like, I think one of the things that's kind of struck me is the none of the changes that they've made, or not even none of it. There seems to be like a contradiction, I suppose, in some of the changes, which kind of feel like the biggest changes have actually kind of been probably the most faithful to the game in terms of like capturing the spirit of it and stuff like that. So like, it's a huge change to not have Finding Strings play out the way it does, and to have um the Eugene stuff instead, and yet that like captures the spirit of it, whereas the stuff like Ellie confronting Nora, for example, was almost one to one,
Mhm.
and yet underlying it, like, that probably reflects a lot more of a change from the source material in a number of ways, like in
Mm.
terms of how Ellie's like kind of pursuit of vengeance is represented, and I think we talked about previously the mask on, mask off stuff,
Mhm.
which comes back to a very significant change to Ellie's character, which goes all the way back to season 1. Because if you remember from like when Joel beats the federal officer to death, and like Ellie's got the look on her face, and then
Mhm.
if you listen to the podcast, Craig Mason's talking about Ellie being like, I think the phrase he used was activated by the
Mhm.
violence. And then there's also the kind of stabbing the infected that's stuck in the floorboards in the pharmacy. And again, she's got that kind of like look on her face, like there's something there about the violence,
Mhm.
which comes back to what Gail says about um they were always walking side by side. Joel didn't kind of lead her on this path, which is fundamentally different to the games where Ellie starts off full of bravado, but it's hiding this like kind of, she's terrified. She's never seen the
Mhm.
outside before. She's quite naive about a lot of it. She's put on a brave face.
Mhm.
She's continually kind of shocked, and like there's these vocal outbursts when you do violence as Joel, and she's like, "Oh my god, Joel!"
Mhm.
Mm.
And then slowly comes to have to do that violence herself. And
Winter's a
like,
turning point there.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
that like Joel teaches her that balance that keeps her alive, but also changes it, and then
Mm.
obviously changes the character in terms of once Joel dies and like she's got that pursuit in there, and it becomes more and more and more and more obsession. Whereas again, I'm not saying that it's necessarily bad the version in the show, but I think it's very very different because
Mhm.
it's still an undercurrent of like on the surface I'm going to be like pleasant and all this sort of stuff. And Bella plays it this way as well. I think even in the birthday gift section of the episode that we've just had, particularly when you see the fireflies, and also to a degree when she woke up first thing at the end of the last episode,
Mhm.
it's almost like the smile plastered to her face and the acting like a child and joyful and stuff is a mask. Like she's putting it on.
Mhm.
And then she sees the fireflies and completely zones out.
I mean, I've argued for a long time about not just, I mean, we know Bella's neurodivergent, but Ellie being neurodivergent and being a
Mhm.
high masking neurodivergent. And we see this with the mask on, mask off all the time. It's like, um, they, I like getting presents, but I like getting presents where it's from Phil or someone I'm really close to, because if somebody I don't really know gives me a present, I'm like, thank you. I don't know what to do with my face. I don't know what to say. I really struggle. But Ellie has got it down. Ellie knows when to wake up and go, it's my birthday and fireflies. Honestly, I would
Mhm.
argue for Ellie being neurodivergent as well.
Yeah. But it's I think if people like are wondering why that version, like this version of Ellie, feels so different, and she does.
I
Mhm.
don't know
I
that
think
she does feel that
I think it
different.
goes back to season one rather than just being purely a season two thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because again, yeah, the Ellie that we see in the game does behave differently in those things. It does go through more of a transition over time.
I don't know. I don't know that there's that much of a difference between that Ellie and the Ellie we've got in the show. I don't see that fundamentally their characters, the way they move might be different, the way they speak might be different, but fundamentally, this is still a child who was gobby and cocky enough when she was tied up, and has she turned yet? No. And she was like a little hellion at that point, right at the beginning. And then we saw her being afraid when federal officers had them down on their knees, and she knew she wasn't going to pass the scan test.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so from
That
that moment,
that
we've got
part's absolutely the same. But I'm talking specifically in relation to how she views violence, and particularly not so much violence done to her, but like kind of done by her or on her behalf. And again, there's stuff about like again that Craig was talking about in season one about Ellie being activated by the way
yeah.
Joel, like again that stuff, that that
And
part.
she
And I get what you're
spends
saying. Like,
most of season one asking for a gun.
yeah, well, it's not even the asking for a gun. The asking for a gun is part of the game. Ellie, it's just that kind of the way she reacts to violence and that is different and does feel different. Again, like the it's such a weird phrase to use, but yeah, the activated that stuff, that's the part that kind
Mm,
of again is like kind of specific to TV show Ellie.
yeah.
Yeah, the change doesn't bother me.
Will you stop? Sorry, cats are fighting.
It doesn't bother me, and I think like episode but I think the thing is episode 5 with the Nora sequence is the first time that we like see that in the season,
Mm,
like that violence be
Mhm.
reactivated. I just feel like there is a through line that they kind of like with Ellie's character specifically, like they dropped the ball on something, and I haven't been able to figure out what it is. And I know there's people saying like, oh, they've made her look really dumb or not as capable. And I don't even think it's any of those things because like you can when you're playing the game, you can play Ellie any way that you want. You don't have to kill you like she's not, she doesn't have to be this cold-blooded killer. You make her that way if you choose to kill all the enemies in
I
your
don't even see her
surroundings.
as that way. I see her as a traumatized child who has no other choices.
Yeah, so like narratively in the game, she only kills out of self-defense or to save someone like Dina until we get to the Nora sequence.
Yeah.
So like I see what people are saying and I understand where they can like are finding those conclusions, but I don't know. I haven't been able personally to like figure out why something like fundamentally about this version of Ellie like
I think
isn't working for
it's
me
not even
totally.
like, I don't even think it's a deliberate choice. I think it's an effect of changes that beget changes, which beget changes, like kind of
Yeah.
snowball effect stuff.
Mhm.
Because Ellie's not really had to kill anyone yet because Nora was the first member of the Salt Lake crew that they confronted, because in the TV show there's only 5 of them.
There's no Jordan cuz that's
Um,
the first. Is that the first person in Seattle
yeah, that's
that you have to kill? That's like a
because the school is the first human encounter. Like before that, it's all
right.
infected.
And you don't technically have to kill anyone at the school to get through it. It's hard.
Oh, that's true. But I managed to get through school on grounded with 0 kills twice. Oh my fucking god. That is so fucking hard to do.
I don't know how you do it because every time I've tried to like speed run through that section, it just doesn't let me open the window, and I'm just like, I guess I'm just fucking it up in here and killing everyone. But like it, yeah, just like canonically, the first person that is like is a non-choice for you to kill is Jordan, which is in line with whatever a WLF guy it was that Ellie had to kill at the TV station, like timeline wise.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there's been, like, again, they fight their way out of the TV station and kill someone on the way, going to the infected. I don't think there's a huge difference in terms of that. I mean, yeah, you know, you don't have to fight your way through the elementary school and then downtown and all this sort of stuff. But again, that's all gameplay. That's all like, you know,
Yeah.
if this was, I don't know, John Wick, then yeah, you'd absolutely need all those sequences and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that character is. But if you've not got to have the gameplay section in for us, you know, gamers who need to like do something interactive in between, you don't need that to tell the story, like especially if Jordan doesn't exist. But yeah, I think it's just a combination of different things where they've made different choices that have led to other things have to happen. Like the fact that Ellie has to be positive about the pregnancy mainly because she's literally only just got with Dina, and if they had a big massive fight, then it wouldn't be realistic for them to like reconcile in the morning.
Right. Exactly.
Let alone for them to like shag immediately afterwards, you know, kind of thing.
He
Yeah.
was giving her a cervical exam.
So yeah, that kind of does that, and I think as well, it's just a weird mix of things. Like I've seen people saying like about Dina like feeling like more like she was a main character rather than Ellie because of like how she was doing all the triangulating to find the path and then doing the big speech. And again, I can see that, and I like I say, I don't think that's the way it was written. And I think, you know, there's a very specific function that Dina's speech about her mother's killer and what she would have done isn't her being more thirsty for revenge. It's about that moment of when she says, whatever Joel may have done, he didn't deserve that, as in the torture that they're given. And then Ellie goes and does that exact same thing to Nora after Dina's given this whole, you know, no matter what you've done to someone else, you don't deserve that. And it's kind of like showing Ellie's descent and contrasting with it. But
I think
because
also
they've had to put the relationship stuff in so late, because they've had that 3-month gap, it doesn't feel like Ellie's kind of done anything in the meantime. Like, 'cause she's been all like happy, kind of like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
I'm going to be a dad kind of thing. It kind of unintentionally undercuts it, and that's why people feel that way. Like say,
Mm-hmm.
I can see exactly what they're intending to do with those scenes,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see why this decision has come out of this decision.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunately kind of clash like tectonic plates, and like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't entirely all work exactly as it should.
Yeah, that's why like people that have said that they're making Ellie look stupid because Dina's doing all of these things, like those are the things that she does in the game for
Yep.
you. It's just shown in a different way and in a different kind of context, but it's still like we see if we're going to get like really specific with the game, when Ellie goes up to she finds the radio, she's like, "Oh, this stupid thing doesn't work." She doesn't have the patience to try to figure out that maybe it's something that the WLF uses, where clearly it's something that Dina figured out and was able to work through all night.
Yeah.
That like I don't like Ellie also doesn't have a plan. Like she's also reckless in the
Hmm.
same way that the show version of Ellie is. And so like I understand the way that it's like presented makes it seem that way, and maybe it's not the best representation of those things. Like you said, like up until episode 5 we haven't really seen Ellie with like grapple with the grief as
Yeah.
much as we do in the game. um so I think everything else that is in the game is like more highlighted to make people criticize it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, but
Honestly, if there was no Dina doing that, they would be like, "Well, what is Dina doing there? She's not doing anything. She's just getting in the way," which would be more, from what I understand, more accurate to game Dina. But but like it's like there's an expression, you can't please all the people all the time.
yeah, but
So
I
if
think
Mhm.
Dina's doing the triangulation like she does in the games, like they're making Ellie look stupid. If Ellie did it, it'd be like, why is Dina there?
yeah,
Mhm.
Can't
but I
win.
think in terms of like you were saying, not being able to put your finger on one thing, it's like I don't think it is. I don't think they've made an active decision
Mhm.
that in, interferes with Ellie's character. I think they've just made a bunch of decisions at different points, kind of tactically,
Yeah.
Yeah.
for how the show's presented, and then like kind of this, they
Mhm.
haven't really thought about how that knocks onto other decisions, which all make sense on their own and kind of in isolation, but once you put them together as a whole, like the cracks start to show that it's more like that. It feels like
Yeah.
rather than
Mhm.
oh, they did this one specific thing, and this is why they've kind of gone. It's just like the pieces fit together, but not as neatly as we'd hope.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
that snowball effect. I think it's like the farther into the season we get, I'm like, okay, I understand the choices that they made in this episode because of what came before it. Because of this like snow, they have to do something a certain way because of the
Yeah.
a choice that they made earlier on in the writing. So like that's why I'm like I can understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, yeah, I think the choices that they're making have unintended consequences in other avenues that I don't know if they thought about, or maybe the fans are just picking up, like, take away different things than the writers, what Craig Mazin took away from things. I don't know. There's some sort of disconnect there. And I also think, like, because it's a television show, you can look at the whole thing a little bit easier than you can look at like the Last of Us game franchise as a
Mm.
whole. Because the game, I feel like the two games have very clearly different tones. And I think they can get away with that because they're like two separate entities, even if they do have like a through line story. Whereas the show, you want to, like, I guess for an audience purpose, you want to keep the same kind of tone that you had in
Hmm.
season one, which I think is I don't like. I wish that they would have gone more dark, like tonally and aesthetically,
Yeah.
like the game. But I understand the choice that they made to like keep it more consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to see, based on the previews, some of that in next episode as well, like kind of in terms of certain things we see there. But before we go on to that, before we go into the future spoiler territory, is there anything else that we haven't covered in terms of what's already happened?
I don't know if we've just said how. I know we have said how brilliant the actor who played Eugene was. That's it.
I did like that. I did like giving more for Eugene instead of just a character that, because that's kind of what they did in season 1. Was we only saw Frank as a skeleton on the ceiling, and then they made him like this fully rounded out character. So
yeah,
it's kind of following that pattern.
which I
Yeah.
like.
That also felt like, as well, again, the Eugene in the games that we know about him was a completely different character than the one we saw in the show, but it didn't matter in the slightest because the role he serves in terms of the show, he played that perfectly. Did this like fantastic performance, like it properly like kind of gets you in that moment where he's like contemplating the end of his life and doesn't know how to react and everything else.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter in the slightest that he's not the same character as he's not the same Eugene.
And honestly,
there's no bearing on it.
that opened up giving the Eugene qualities to Joel, so that the Eugene Dina relationship is now Joel and Dina's relationship a little bit, with like teaching her about the technology and like having more of that personal relationship that we didn't see in the game. So it doesn't bother me. I liked it.
And it was quite nice to see Benji phoning a flashback. It's like, Benji's not dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was safe in bed. So
okay.
He's fine.
That's good to know. No more Benji Death Watch.
What? That's a good point. It's actually one thing that isn't really touched on, but is again we see, because Tommy is always the victim of having a character arc that we never see any of. But he also was better than his own father.
Yeah.
We just never saw any of it because it was all focused on Joel.
Yeah, that is. I do like that too. That's like, I was thinking about it last night, and I'm like, the one big change that does kind of fundamentally change the story that I am okay with is Tommy's character.
Yeah.
Like giving him more of a responsible role and like a leadership role, because he supposedly has that in the game, but like none of his character reflects
Maria's
his
in charge in the
ability to
game.
do that. Yeah. So I'm glad that they did that. I will say though, I guess this is my last thought from the episode, is Maria talking to Joel. Like, I get that I don't think we needed to see the dance scene again. I thought that was an odd choice. I thought they could have filled in that with something else. I guess it was supposed to be like from Joel's perspective and like how he's viewing Ellie. I still think it was a little weird, but the thing that I thought was kind of the weirdest, and it's another one of those like they're telling us, not showing us, but at this time they already showed us this, when Maria is like, you mean a lot to this whole community. It's like, no shit. We saw the flowers and like cards and stuff outside of his house. I didn't need that spelled out for me.
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
in that way.
They could have had the conversation there in the time that was the conversation where Ellie and Joel had like effectively their relationship had completely broken down.
Yeah.
That being
after
said,
Eugene.
I did like the view of the dance and what have you from Joel's perspective, because it was different. When we watched it, it was two women having a dance, having a kiss, and then something happened to them. From Joel's perspective, it was eyes focus, make sure she's okay. It like he could never step down from that protector role. And I thought, so I quite liked that. I agree with the whole, you're a pillar of the community. We know. We know. We heard you say it again, and we saw the cards and flowers. But
Yeah, it
that
just felt
plot,
like they were like, you know, you know who we haven't seen in a while, Maria and Tommy. We should bring them in
yeah,
for something. And it's because like her saying, you know, you're so important to this community, and then telling Joel that like he's like family to her now. It's like we saw that in the first episode.
It's like also
absolutely.
like, yeah, they are literally family, like they're
Yeah.
related.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like literally. And
yeah.
I like that Tommy's got this better arc in the program for two reasons. One, it fits really well with the program and the writing, and two, because we met Gabriel Luna and he was lovely. So I want nice things for him.
Yeah. That's why I want to see him I want to see him wreck some shit up, like fuck some shit up.
Right.
Which
Right.
maybe they're saving for season 3. I don't know. Maybe we'll
Let's
get
hope
something next
so.
episode. Who knows?
Yeah. On which note, this is going to be your warning now. If you want to go into the rest of this season and next season in 2027 completely blind, then what follows, we're going to be discussing what we know from the previews of next episode and also what we know from the game. So there will be spoilers ahead. So if you want to keep your experience completely blind and going in pure with the with the show and have no other knowledge, then stop here. Otherwise, let's continue. And have you seen it? Again, they only do it 30 seconds and there's a bunch of flashes of images. But have you seen the preview for
Yes.
episode
No.
7? No. Okay.
As you know, I don't watch them.
There's there's a few things in this.
Okay.
The first thing we see, which is again another one of those things where it's later than it would have been in the game, but I'm glad it's happening. We see Dina giving Ellie the friendship bracelet.
Mm-hmm.
We see Jesse saying, "I am not going to die here." And then we see Ellie and Jesse running up the theater's aisle towards the door, which I think is particularly cruel as far as the trailer goes.
I keep seeing people making the Walter White meme that's like yelling, like, no, don't go there. Jesse duck.
Yeah.
I'm so sad because I thought I was so certain that we weren't gonna get to this in this season. Here we
Yeah.
are.
I again, the more we think about it, the more it's like, okay, yeah, they're literally doing the entire first half of the game in the same structure. It always brings me back, and I said this last week, but so why the fuck do we already know that it's Abby's dad?
Right.
It's like
I wish they would have just committed if they were gonna do this structure already.
because I think I genuinely didn't think they were going to do this, and I think that's sticking to the game structure and only showing Ellie's side and then showing Abby's side separately after is possibly braver on TV than it was in the game, because the game,
Oh yeah,
it was a brave decision anyway, because they must have known they were going to get backlash, but now the TV show's coming out, they know for a fact it comes with backlash, and they went with it anyway. So that's, but it's like, yeah, they should have just cut a few lines for Caitlin. Just give her the opening scene at the start of episode 1, and then cut out the whole bit of the monologue. That was my dad.
Yeah, that kind of baffles me. That when we get front loaded with all of this exposition about Abby, I was expecting to see way more of her in the season because of that.
Yep.
Because this whole time I was like, the structure of the game wouldn't work for a TV show, but clearly they think differently and they're like, we're going to do it anyway. But if they were going to do it anyway, then why did you give us so much about Abby for us to not see her again for the rest of the season, other than maybe one scene next episode?
Yeah. Agreed.
I don't know. It's a choice, and I don't
I don't love it.
I don't even mind the first scene of Abby and introducing the whole Salt Lake crew, because at that point you don't that she's I think her being a Firefly is less surprising than the fact that the surgeon was her dad.
It still sets her up as a threat. Essentially, she's like the
Yeah.
villain of the piece.
Yeah, it sets her up as a threat without giving all of the answers away, and then they do in the next episode, which I don't know. It's just a weird choice to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it plays, but it does look like for the most part we'll be getting out Ellie Day 3, because we also see the boat going towards the Ferris wheel, and we see a scene of like Ellie waiting somewhere and what looks like two figures coming in from like the dock, which very possibly Mel and Owen.
Yeah.
But we also get a scene in that trailer which confused the hell out of me, because I don't know where it's going to fit in, which is more Seraphites and what looked very much like Ellie in the scene that Abby is in the game, where she's like facing getting lynched. I'm very confused about that, so I'm very interested to see what actually happens with that.
I'm like trying to find it on Twitter so I can just pull it up and see it, because I was like, wait, what's happening?
Everything else was like, oh yes, this makes sense. This is what we're getting. It's day 3. Looking forward to seeing how they do that. And then I saw that part and was like, wait
a minute. Yeah.
It also. Oh no, never mind. I'm getting my things mixed up. But it looks like they're in a parking garage being shot at by someone, and I'm like, that's Abby. Like Joel and Jesse, or not Joel. Oh my god, Jesse and Ellie.
Yeah.
And they're also like Isaac on a boat.
yeah.
I'm confused.
This is why I don't watch them. Like, nope.
Unless they're doing like the Marvel thing where they're like superimposing Ellie over where Abby is actually going to be in the Seraphite forest or something, but I don't think that they would do that.
Yeah, I don't get why they'd show that Abby this late in this season.
Yeah, unless it's too different. I'm trying to like see these frames of her being held. No, it's definitely the same scene because she's being held by two big Seraphites, and you can see the rope.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know.
I can't even make any predictions about that. Like thinking, oh yeah, maybe they're gonna. It's like I'm just stumped. Like, oh.
I guess like the only thing I can see is that we're not gonna get like the bloater fight in the arcade. So they're like, what can we put there instead that's gonna severely hinder her ability to get to the aquarium? Maybe.
Yeah.
Because you do like go through the building with all the Seraphites right before that in the game.
I mean, that's true. And presumably she would part ways with Jesse if he thinks Tommy is somewhere else. Because they'd need to separate the two of them.
Yeah.
Again, because Ellie needs to go to the aquarium on her own. But yeah.
I'm also wondering, oh god, I'm like, now I'm just like kind of doom thinking that Ellie's looking at what presumably I'm going to assume is Owen and Mel on a dock. I'm like, what if they don't go inside the aquarium at all and it all happens on this dock? Because we know that Abby comes back to that dock. I would be so, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna have to wait and see. Like this is the thing. We're gonna have to like torture ourselves for another 7 days and then like watch and be like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't have like that many thoughts or predictions.
No, me either. I think because I know most of the Abby stuff's got to come in season 3 now. It's not lost its luster for me, but I don't really have anything that I want to predict until I've seen the next episode. But I don't know if I'm ready for Jesse.
No.
I am not ready for Jesse. Phil will attest to the fact that when I saw that bit in the game, I screamed when he was playing. Like literally, he came through. Boom, I was very upset. I was very angry and also upset. Like, yeah.
It's one of my like, I hate it because I love Jesse, but it's also one of my like favorite of the like brutal moments in the
Yeah.
game because his death is so unceremonious.
Right?
Like it just happens, and it feels so real.
Yeah.
Like there's so many like TV shows and movies and game, like any kind of media, they have when a character dies, it's like they have this big send off, right?
Yeah.
But that's not like reality to
No.
when people in real life die. Sometimes you don't, it happens so fast. You don't get to say goodbye. You don't get this big like send off for them.
Plus, if they done it like that, I mean, we see Ellie shooting people. We see people shooting each other and dying just like that all over the place. If there was plot armor so it couldn't happen to the Jackson lot, that would take away the immersion for me.
Yeah.
So the fact that anyone from Jackson as well can just walk into a room and gone.
Plus that one happening in
Tommy Tits Thanos, but yeah.
That one happening in that specific way is important for the story as well, because obviously the parallel for that is what Abby sees what happens to Manny.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think
when they do that, it stays accurate. We're going to see that same moment in season 3 as well.
So excited for that too. Sorry, I'm a Manny hater. I'm such a Manny hater.
I kind of love him. He's just so just Manny.
I would like him a lot. Maybe I'll like show Manny more because they didn't have him spit on Joel's dead body. Like that really just did it in for me.
I feel like Show Manny, he's got kind of like a bit of Jordan qualities in him, so he's a bit more of a dick though. Like, spitting or not, is like
yeah.
He's probably less believable as a ladies' man. Is probably more of like some kind of incel. Well, I'm not saying the character is, but I'd say he's just like it's probably less believable that he's left a trail of children around him, like Big Money clearly has.
Manny's kids, like season 4, Manny's kids seek revenge.
Yeah, that's actually The Last of Us Part 3 is JJ versus all of Manny's offspring.
I would watch the shit out of that.
With no flash forward either. Like they're all like 10.
Abby and doing an Inigo Montoya. Hello, my name is JJ. You killed my father.
But no, really. I think Jesse's death honestly will hit harder in the show because of the last time that we see him with Ellie. He's like mad at her.
Yeah.
Because it's different. The circumstances are different in the game. He like is like, nah, I would have come with you if you asked.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I totally would. Maybe they have that conversation next episode, and that's actually how he was feeling. And maybe he is upset that he didn't think that like he would have preferred that they come to him.
Yeah.
Because the Dina kind of makes the assumption for him that like Captain Wyoming wouldn't want to come because of the he's a stickler. But
that begs the question, because 3 people voted on the council to go after them, and I think Gabriel Luna and I can't remember her name, who plays Maria, they both said their characters like definitely said yes. Like I think Tommy's was an instant yes, Maria's was more of a, I think after thinking about it a little bit, yes. The assumption is that the third one would be Jesse, but we don't know that for certain. Like, do we think Jesse would have voted yes, or?
I don't think he would.
It's
I
hard
don't think
to.
he would.
I think maybe I can see a circumstance where he would vote yes, knowing that it wasn't going to win, and just wanting to be like supportive. And then I don't know, maybe we'll find out next episode. Like, because
Yeah.
we know that Joel and Ellie, or oh my god, I keep calling him Joel. Jesse and Ellie go out together and they have a lot of conversations
Well, we know
going
Jesse
through.
is the new Joel, so
Yeah.
so it's understandable.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like maybe a lot of these questions will be answered next episode when Jesse and Ellie get to talk it out. But
Yeah.
I still think the circumstances in which Jesse being there is less on his, like, in the game it was more like his choice to be there, like fully in support
Yeah.
of Ellie. This time it's like a reluctant, I'm going to save you because you're stupid and I'm mad at you for doing this, and
Yeah.
he loses his life because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I say, so far, that was one of the things that I have liked is like Jesse having more agency in that way and like not just being
Mhm.
like, well, of course, but it's more like, no, we're not talking right now. I've got to save your asses and
Mhm.
Yeah.
do this. And I think if they keep that up, at least to some degree, then it adds to the weight of guilt that's piled up around this. Particularly if the other consequence of that is obviously Tommy being like wounded in the same way that he is, where he loses an eye, he can't walk, and everything else. And then if we're assuming he follows the kind of same arc and becomes so embittered afterwards and like turns on his head, like I say, I think there's going to be that much more impact in terms of they never really brought this on themselves. Just more Ellie brought it on them, and like that puts a lot more weight on Ellie's shoulders,
Mhm.
both in
Yeah.
terms of I should stay at the farm and not pursue this anymore, even though just the thought of it's eating me up and I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, and I can't do this,
Mhm.
versus but I have to go and do it, even though it means leaving behind everyone who cares about me and causing even more destruction. And that just like will weigh a lot heavier. Not that
Mhm.
it didn't weigh heavy in the first place. So, you know, it's not like it wasn't there. It's just essentially replacing an anvil for a bigger anvil as far as weight goes.
Yeah, and this is why I'm like, I this season feels a lot like it's setting up a lot of things for future seasons, because they've already like said in interviews that like they think that they can stretch the story to go through a season 4. And I'm like,
I don't know how,
I don't know how
unless they make an
either.
entire season of Santa Barbara. But
Right.
given how they've like breezed through Seattle for Ellie,
Yeah, that's what I'm imagining. Like, we'll get Abby's 3 days in Seattle next season. Maybe we'll get a whole. I was hoping this season we would get a full Tommy episode of what he's doing in Seattle.
Yeah.
So maybe that's next season. But even then, I don't know. It just feels like they're setting a lot of things up in this season that will pay off later. Like the whole like, I hope that you do better than me
Yeah.
thing, because we know that what Ellie does later is in fact not better than Joel. But that's like so far off from this season. I don't know. Maybe they're just playing the long game with Ellie's descent to darkness.
Hmm.
And I don't know.
No, I don't know.
yeah, I feel like given that the pace they've moved through this, which I can see why people think it was rushed, but again, as much as I've spent a lot of this episode being critical of a lot of stuff, I'm overall fairly happy with the fact, you know, what they've covered for each day. I think they've covered what they need to, even if
Yeah.
I've been picking at some of the changes. If some of Abby's days, I think, will probably need more treatment, particularly if, you know, they have to set up more of a backstory and kind of how the WLF works. They
Yeah.
have to set up how, you know, going out and getting like nearly hung by the Seraphites and all this sort of stuff. So
There's
theoretically, that's more than 3 episodes.
Yeah, that's like they're gonna have to do more legwork because like we know Joel and Ellie from all of season 1.
Yeah.
And we only know Abby from these few scenes. So to like keep audiences engaged watching this character that they don't like and probably won't like anymore next episode. They'll have to do a lot for her. So I don't know. I still don't see how they can stretch it that far.
Mm,
Inlet, I don't know. I don't know.
No. It's
like I
like
say,
if
I
you
think,
go
yeah,
on, Bill.
I was going to say, I think they could probably. I forget. I wish I knew where I'd heard it, but I'm sure someone they were saying that season 3 would have more episodes than season 2.
Yeah, I did see that somewhere too.
But let's say, for argument's sake, it's 10, because that seems to be like the standard. Like 7, even by modern TV show standards, 7 seems really short.
Mm-hmm.
It does. Yellow Jackets has at least 10 in every
Yeah.
season.
So let's say 10. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
theoretically the 7 episodes to cover Abby's side of Seattle. They could. I feel like they could stretch out that far.
Yeah.
And like, one of them would be like, say, the confrontation and its aftermath. We'd have to kind of have before day 1, almost, like in terms of we'd have to see it, Abby with her father, and although we know who it is, they have to kind of give us a reason to care about that relationship,
Mm-hmm.
since they've already dropped who it is.
Yeah, I mean, if they just did a whole flashback episode with Ellie and Joel, I think they could do a similar thing.
I'd love to see the I found a coin, here's a zebra given birth.
I mean, that does mean more of Mel Dandridge as Marlene as well.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
I
just
was
makes
shocked
me
we didn't
happy.
get that this season. I was really expecting her to come back this season for that scene. But alas.
I love Mel Dandridge. I am a fan, a big fan, because I watched her in Greenleaf, which was the thing about the big black mega churches, and it
Mm,
was so over the top. I loved it. But she was brilliant in season 1 as Marlene because she was understated, and it was just a gorgeous, gorgeous performance. So I'm quite happy if we get to see more of Mel.
yeah.
Mm. And I also feel like they still need to set up, like, presumably the way they're going to do it, if you're watching this purely on TV, as a TV audience, and you've not played the game, and you have no knowledge of the game, you've avoided everything about that, or you're just not chronically online, I don't know, then Ellie will kill Mel and Owen, and it'll turn out that Mel's heavily pregnant, and it'll be a huge shock.
Yeah.
Again, I'm still working on the premise that they're not going to cut that's going to be a key part of it. So they then have to, like, take us back a few steps and set that up,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
all we've seen is a hint, and not even a very strong, like, but we've seen like that it's actually Abby and Owen who are the relationship. We
Mm-hmm.
never saw any hint of Mel and Owen being in a relationship there. So yeah,
Right.
there's a lot of legwork to do, I feel, if
Yeah.
it's still the same dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can imagine them showing us more of Lev and Yara before
Yeah.
they meet up with Abby, maybe too.
Oh, that's true. That's true, because we got
Because there's like
backstory.
that whole side, because we only hear about their relationship with their mom. We don't see it until it's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, as an aside on that as well, I really hope they do that justice,
Mm-hmm.
Me
because
too.
yeah, when they were writing it in, like, in the game. Obviously, Ian Alexander, who was cast, was themselves trans,
Mm-hmm.
and like lived that experience. So that kind of was being brought to the role. There was also a lot of research done to make sure kind of it was authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, with again not wanting to be like make it like all about shitting on Craig Mason because it's not. But if it's again another like he's the sole writer for all these episodes or whatever next season, there's a risk that they don't pull that off right. There's like
Mm-hmm.
it needs to like be. Well, I mean, even if like okay, yeah, Neil Druckmann is too busy with Intergalactic, which is coming out next year maybe, and that's going to take up a heavier amount of the time. Put Halle Gross on the writing stuff and like keep her there like all the time.
Please.
Just keep.
Right?
Please, like the difference in how this episode is written compared to the other 5 before it is like so. It's such a stark contrast that I know like Abby is my favorite character and Lev is my special boy, so I know that I'm gonna be even more hypercritical about season 3 when we get to it, and I
Because
hate that about myself, but I just know that that's. But it's also like it's a very I relate to Abby in a lot of ways. It's a very personal story. With her relationship with Lev feels a lot like the relationship I have with my brother. So like it's there's a lot of like personal like things that I'm like I just want them to get it right, and I want them to really take the time to find the right actor to play Lev, because I
mhm,
think the representation of a character like that is so important, both like ethnicity wise and
gender-wise,
gender wise,
queerness-wise,
queerness wise.
everything.
Yeah, I like I don't know, and I'm just it, I think I would be like, and I am a cisgender person. This is just like from my experiences with other like queer friends and non-binary friends. Like I would even be okay if they cast like an AFAB non-binary actor, because I'm just thinking logistically, if they cast a trans actor who has like gone through like hormonal treatments and stuff, like that's not something that exists in like this apocalyptic world, so it would feel kind of out of place
Yeah, and
if
and
that.
even if it did, like the Lev is 13 in
Yeah,
Seattle.
yeah,
I
so
mean,
that too.
I was late because I was doing a table read for something that's coming out, Welsh folklore thing, and very exciting. And we finished in time for me to be here on time, but I was late because we were sat discussing this very thing.
Yeah.
Like this is a room full of writers, not so much actors, but writers.
Mhm.
And we were all talking about how Neil Druckmann and Hallie are just amazing writers, what the amazing writing was during the whole of the game, how it was just so nuanced and gorgeous. And everybody in the room I was in said, well, you can tell Craig Mazin got muzzled a bit this week. And everybody was like just waxing lyrical about Druckmann and Gross. It was just, you can tell the difference. And I'm not a cisgender person. I am an AFAB non-binary person.
Mhm.
Pronouns she stroke they. Don't really care. It's more gender than anything else. Like really is. But the representation that we've seen of not just this character, but of queerness generally in
Mhm.
this show. And I know it means that we've had the whole, oh, it's all gone woke, it's all DEI. Don't be shush, shush, shush. It's like, Alexa, play white noise. It's all woke, it's all DEI. Um, it's it's gorgeous and it's glorious. And the fact that Lev is trans is the story, but it's not the character, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So
No,
Lev
100%.
is trans, and he's had to leave because he's trans. But the fact that he's trans is not impacting on who he is as a soul. So he's already saying things to Abby like, no more
Mhm.
violence. Okay, stop. He's curbing Abby's worst excesses. And
Yeah,
that's not
Yeah.
because he's trans, that's because he's a great guy. And
yeah.
I
His
love
main
that
function in
balance.
the story is like he's effectively Abby's conscience at that point.
Yeah.
He's when she like sort of bumps into them, she's still very heavily prejudiced against, she's still like, calling them scars. There's the whole conversation that Manny and Mel are arguing about like how the war started again, and Abby's
Mhm.
kind of still on the side of, well, wash our hands of it, all this sort of stuff. It's not our fault, it's their
Mhm.
fault.
Mm.
And even when like she saves them and like they're obviously kids, but she's still like, what am I doing? They're fucking scars. And like
Mhm.
he obviously is the reason for her to kind of go past that ideology and stuff. But also then when the confrontation happens and then she's about to kill Dina because Mel got killed, and it's like, she's pregnant, good. Like
Mm.
she's
Mhm.
finding herself caught back up in that like bloodlust vengeance. It levs the thing, the conscience, the voice that's like, essentially, what the fuck are you doing?
Mhm.
He doesn't say it. That was the lovely thing. I hope he doesn't say it in the show.
He
Just says,
doesn't.
Abby.
But I will
That's
I will
enough.
say, like the few lines where Lev does swear are fucking
I
glorious.
love my sweet boy. I love him
sweet
so
boy.
much. Like when he says cold, it's like, never mind.
I'd forgotten until I like went through and like did a kill all in like the bottom floor of the descent, and then afterwards you go through the elevator, and it's like I hadn't heard it for so long, but when Lev goes, "Fuck this building,"
Yeah.
And
it's
you're
like,
like, enough of
Yeah.
that language.
No.
He's
Lev
my sweet boy too.
Lev means so much to me. And yeah, you're right. It's the circumstances of how him and Abby meet that because of the choices that he's made and his identity is like that's kind of the reason that that's there, but that's not like his whole existence. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of stories with queer characters tend to surround their story with like their experience coming out as queer or how their family reacts, like, which is fine in a lot of contexts, but in a show like this when the story is like so beyond those
Yep.
things, and that I just love that it's just like a part of him, it is not like his whole
Exactly.
being.
It brings me joy. It gives
Yeah.
me euphoria.
Yeah,
Like,
which I think is one of the reasons why like them focusing more on like Dina denying her sexuality was like bothered me, because those are great stories to tell, just not in this.
not
It's
in
just
this.
not here. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I too thought I was straight for many years. Like, yeah, I agree. I agree. It is a story that's recognizable to many queer people,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure it was the right place to tell it because they didn't tell it long and they didn't tell it well.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I really hope they take their time with Lev's story, because it's
Same.
and
Oh,
Abby's just in general.
my boy. My boy. Love him. Especially when they go over the bridge and Abby's like absolutely shitting herself. Like, oh, just don't look down. And Lev's there like skipping along.
It's like parkour. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And that's another thing. I'm like, what are they going to make Abby afraid of? Because logistically, a sky bridge sounds ridiculous in the context
Yeah.
of this version of the show. So how are they going to display the same thing, like, and have the
Yeah.
same effect? So I don't know. I don't
And
want to
can
think
they
about it
do it in a
too
way so
long.
that they can still have? Oh my God, Lev! Now,
That's my favorite line in the whole everything. Everything about any Last of Us thing, both games, show, is my favorite thing. So what's going on with you and Owen? Oh my God, Lev, now? I just gets me every time. I love it so much.
Yeah.
yeah, it's the only one that comes close to. Are you wearing my backpack?
Yes.
Oh, but it's as well when she says, "Oh, I noticed they called you something else." "Yeah. Do you wanna talk about it?" "Not really." "Okay."
Yeah. And honestly, there's a lot of people when the
Perfect.
game came out that didn't even pick up on the fact that Lev was trans, and that's like was part of his story. They were like, "Wait, what?" Like,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
the fuck else do you like? I don't know. It's like it's in there. It's not spelled out for you. You have to like
Yeah, I like
infer
that
it.
though, because that
Yeah.
the dialogue there kind of felt really natural. And like, yeah, okay, they have the point where Yara explains how she dealt
Mhm.
with it and it didn't do well, but there's never like kind of Lev doesn't stand on a pedestal as like a spotlight shines on me. Well, I had my moments, and it's not like,
Right.
um this PSA thing. It's just tells
Yeah.
the story that it just feels natural in a
And
way that
oh, it's a
like
Mhm.
heart-wrenching but beautiful story, and I'm glad they told it.
And it makes sense for characters of their age in this like post-apocalyptic world to not have the like language and like definitions in the same way that
Yep.
like us in the real world do, because obviously trans people have always existed and it was a thing in 2003, but it's like it's become so much more in the spotlight because of like the internet and social media and represent and just representation in media and things like that that Abby, Lev, Yara, those people like would never have.
I mean,
So the
Ellie and
way that
Dina
it's
didn't even
described,
know what
right?
a pride flag was.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, having it spelled not spelled out, but like shown organically over time
Yeah,
is like so was such a brilliant
gorgeous.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, smiling now, it's made me happy all over again.
yeah. And again, that's why I come back to like I really hope they do it justice, because like if there's this kind of too much exposition, or they try and shoehorn it
hmm
in a way that it's like, well, I'm going to make me as the person who's writing this feel good about my attitude towards it rather than authentically represent it, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
hmm
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's no virtue signaling here. It's just
Yeah.
a story about a kid who happens to be trans.
hmm Yeah. That's just thinking about all of Abby's stuff. I hope because something I thought was so cool the way they did it in the game was scenes that we already saw. And I guess they did that in episode 6, like scenes that we've already seen, but
Yeah.
like in a new context or from a new point of view or a new angle. Because like when Abby goes to the theater, we don't know that Lev is there until we play as her.
No, that's true.
Like she comes and it looks like she's alone. And so I love that
Oh,
they like changed that up and like show all the connections that Abby and Ellie had to each other on those 3 days. So
yeah.
they haven't foreshadowed it as much in this season as I was expecting. Like with just like the radio calls of like Abby was just here and she was locked up and now she's gone, and Ellie hears that and is like, she was just here, where the fuck is she? Which doesn't mean that they can't still do those connections. It's just I think it's an interesting choice that they haven't really foreshadowed
Yeah, yeah.
it
Mm.
in at all.
We'll definitely be watching out in the theater, going like, what angles have they used? Could there be another person behind that camera?
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, can't wait. Got me all excited about it again now. After like a
Yeah.
couple of hours of ripping it, like dissecting it, now I'm all excited again.
It
I
it does
just, I
feel
just
weird
love
that there's
my.
only one episode left though already.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah. It didn't seem that long ago. I was like, "Ah, we're nearly halfway through," and now it's like, "What?" Yeah, it's over too quickly.
But,
Yeah, don't like.
but yeah, and next week I think as well. There's the conversation we're interested in, not only because obviously we'll have to talk about episode 7, but then it's also
What comes next?
does there well, I mean that too, but also is there any kind of now once we have the full context of all 7 episodes, how does
Mhm.
that make each of them feel? Like in everything we said before, is it all still the same, or has anything changed on it and stuff?
Mhm. Yeah, is there payoff to some of the things that we still have questions about? Be interesting to find out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, any final thoughts for today, either on what we've already seen or what we're hoping to see, or, well, anything at all, really?
I don't know that I have. I'm just looking forward to seeing what they do with the last episode. Because how long is it going to be? Do we know?
They've all generally been about an hour, sometimes less. I don't think any have been longer.
No. It
Mm-mm.
would be, yeah. Be nice. It'll be good to see how it all comes together. But apart from that, I think I've exhausted the things I wanted to talk about today.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think so. I think a lot of the things in episode 6 they did justice. Like my favorite scene,
Yeah.
in the spaceship. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
First time I saw Phil play that bit, I cried.
Oh yeah,
With joy.
I cry every time, and I have the tape. My boyfriend got it for me for Christmas last year, the year before,
Oh
and it
wow.
actually plays the Apollo 11, the same
Oh wow.
launch. Yeah, this is really cool.
I buy Phil lots of Last of Us stuff. Like, it does make me smile every time we do this that he's got Grumpy Ellie on his shoulder.
Love
Oh,
that.
yeah.
He's like, what? What are you saying?
So silly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, on that note, I think we've probably said all there is to say for now, at least on this episode. So there is still a little bit more to come, and then there's going to be a 2-year wait to dissect more of it. But for now, at least, we'll comfort ourselves that there's one more week to go.
Yep.
So thank you very much, as always, for joining me and for chatting on endlessly about all of this. It's fun, even when it feels like we are picking it apart and being critical, and even when we are being critical, I think it's still fun to talk about. It's still fun to kind of go through in that way, and it's not just kind of blind hating it.
I spent the last 7 years doing exactly this at uni, so it's like yay.
Yeah, and hopefully those of you watching, whether you're watching this as it's being recorded live or whether you're watching it afterwards once it's on YouTube, hopefully enjoyed this. We will have more of this next week, and then I will have what's currently promising to be a very, very long review of the full series. I have written 3,000 words already, and episode 7 isn't even out yet. So lots to look forward to. But in the meantime, we will bid you good night and catch you next time. If you enjoyed this video, then give it a like and consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. Like the video that's just popped up, which YouTube thinks you should watch next. This is a Patreon and member supported channel, so if you want to become a member and unlock custom badges and emojis, early access to my videos, and your name in the credits, then click the join button below. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.